4, where I talk about some ways to deal with anxiety. In this modern age, as technology is advancing, but the level of mental health problems are on the rise. This is because society, mainly the media, has put on unrealistic standards for us to follow. And if you're not good enough, this constant message you have to look a certain way, otherwise, you're not good enough, are some of the major causes for anxiety, depression, and other mental health problems. Step number 1: seek counseling depending on the level of anxiety. You can't do everything on your own in life, you need an extra hand. So it's okay to ask for help. For example, people playing sports, different individuals require different professional help from coach to get better and get to the next level. Asking for help is not a weakness, rather it's strength, and it takes courage to ask for help. But you should get professional help from psychotherapists, psychologists. My anxiety started when after I graduated grade 5. That's when I had chronic back pain, and I lost my ability to walk right around the same time. So I got help from a child psychologist. Her name was Welcome to episode 59. I'm here with Vishal Gautam. He's like a brother to me. So welcome to my show, Vishal.
Hi, Yvonne. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show, and I'm very excited to get started. And it's
Amazing.
nice to see
Amazing.
you after a while. So
Yes, amazing. Can you let the listeners and our audience looking at our show today a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Vishal Gautam, and I am 32 years old. I work as a software engineer in a company in London, United Kingdom. I've been programming for the last 4.5 years. I live in Montreal. It's a beautiful city. If you haven't visited, you should. It's a very nice city. I know Ivan since 2007. When I first came to Canada, Ivan was one of the first person I've came in contact with, and yeah, it's yeah. If you think about 2007, it's almost 16 years. So,
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
so I've known you for 16 years, so it's like we go way back. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. So diving deep into memory lane, can you tell me a little bit about like growing up and how life was like for you?
Sure. So growing up, so I grew up in a small. So my dad. So I'm originally from Bhutan. I came to Canada in 2007 with my family, but I grew up in Bhutan. I was there until I was 16 years old, but I never really stayed in one place since my dad was in the army. So we always traveled from one place to another. And growing up, it was always every 3 4 years I would go to a new school. So it was difficult making new friends because you'd have to again leave them and then start all over again. But eventually I got used to it, and you get used to it. And the nice thing about traveling, staying in a temporary place for a little bit is that you get to make friends from all over the place. And yeah, when I first came to Canada, I had just finished my grade 10 in Bhutan, and Bhutan is a very poor country, so moving to Canada was a big culture shock for me. Um, Culture shock in a sense
Yeah.
that the education system was different. Just the whole life was just turned upside down, right? And
For the better?
yeah, I would say for the better. I mean, it's there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
And I think we have to, yeah, in if you look at, if you look at all the factors, then there is a net positive, of course. You know, I think Canada is such a beautiful country, and there's a lot of opportunities if you work hard. Um, and one of the challenges is, it's growing up. I did not have a lot of context uh, what I wanted to do.
Pursue.
Yeah, like what goals I wanted to do. It was very difficult um, because our education system is gives you very limited choices, right? And it's mostly class based. So you're sitting in a place and you're just listening to some random person. You're not really practicing and doing it by yourself. And that's how you learn. It's by doing and experimenting and failing, right? And school kind of discourages that. School discourages failing and kind of encourages you to just, be perfect. But, you know, when you're being perfect, you're being fragile because you're trying to achieve something, but nothing is perfect. Like everything
Yeah.
is changing all the time, right? There's always new information. So there's always new happening. And this idea of chasing perfection is flawed because no one can be perfect, right? Um,
And that
perfection.
causes like the fear of failing. Like, you have that innate
Yeah,
fear because you're
yeah.
so
Yeah,
you
my
want to be so
friend
perfect.
Lovey Reed. Welcome to my show, Lovey.
Hi, Evan. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I see that. Can you let the listeners and audience know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Lovey with one L, not lovely, just Lovey. Um, yeah, I am in my mid 20s. I'm a 20 something here in the GTA. I just got married very recently. I am a Christian. I'm a creative. I work in events and communications. I work both corporate life and freelance. And yeah, I'm a pretty interesting human. I come from a pretty unique background. I'm American, Canadian, Jamaican. So I'm an amalgamation of
Ooh.
things. Um, so my mom is American and my dad was Canadian, Jamaican.
Hey,
Um,
let's dive into memory lane then. Let's talk about a little bit of, growing up, struggles, hardships.
yeah. So that's actually a really interesting point because I've been thinking about this all day.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, I have been. I've been reflecting on how far I've come from those struggles and hardships to the point where sometimes you move so far away that you forget where you came from and you forget the things that you overcame. But also before talking about struggles and hardships, I also was like, I really want to honor my parents too. Like I don't want it to sound like my parents didn't do their best
Yeah.
and put me in like whatever. Because growing up, I can look back and see there were struggles and hardships, but growing up, it was just like the norm. I was so loved and cared for that I didn't really feel things. But yeah, struggles and hardships. So growing up, I grew up in the States. I was born in the States. My father and mother both met in Florida. My dad was someone that was, kind of out in the streets. Uh,
Mm.
and so, yeah, he ended up moving to Canada. And so when I was the young age of 5, my mom fell in love with this man and said, I'm going to. And so it was a whole thing where my grandmother didn't necessarily trust me there. I grew up in a really tight knit community, called Tangelo Park, aka known as the Hood. So I grew up in the hood. I grew up in the streets. When I was young, I remember when I was going to school, I started stealing when I was
Ooh.
very young. And it was just this mindset of like, if I know I can get away with it, I will. And I had that in my brain from very young. So when I was in Florida, I definitely did get in some trouble, and I can see the like influences of that environment and what they could have had on me in terms of like my ethics and doing things
Yeah.
like stealing, stealing in little increments and how it got bigger, and then lying and how it multiply and fighting. And so that was one of the reasons my mom didn't really hesitate to move and to try something new, because she had this little young baby and that she's already seeing the influences of this environment on her. And so she brought me here to Canada, and it was rough for me when I first started. When I came here, so I did like pre-K in the States, which is very much an American thing. And then when I came, you're in pre-K for like 2 years, and then you would go to kindergarten, whereas here you do like JK, SK.
Yeah,
when
those
I came
jazz.
here, they sent me to the first grade, and it was complete culture shock for a very young me. We came here. My parents didn't have a lot of money. We lived in an abandoned home in Stouffville for a bit of time. And then we moved into a basement apartment where I had my first dealings with racism before I was at the age of 10. The people that we lived under, I didn't really realize until as I got older. My parents kind of re-explained it to me that we weren't really well liked when we were there. My parents were constantly like mistreated and shaded. My mother, who had this degree in education, was a teacher for many years in the States. When she came here, couldn't get a job, ended up working at a laundromat, and then working at essentially, I remember going to like this bar or restaurant, and she would like mop and clean and do stuff like that. And she did that for a while when I was in the first grade. And then my dad would drive for like an hour and a half to Newmarket, and he worked at like a telecom place kind of thing. So my parents really were just working really hard to make it work. And I'm talking like not just working, like 12-hour days. And so me being an only child, I really learned I found my independence.
Welcome to episode 65. I have here with me Katrina Anastasia. Welcome to my show, Katrina.
Thank you for having me.
Can you let the audience know and listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a singer-songwriter and designer, independent from Toronto, Canada, born and raised. I also manage a studio called Object Studio in the East End, which is really fun and creative. But I've been making music pretty much my whole life, but seriously, since I was like 16 to 20 is when I was kind of discovering that I could do music and actually had a chance at it or actually had the skill for it. And I've been putting music out since I was 21. I kind of put my first song out right in the middle of the pandemic. I kind of just went for it. I said, I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of holding back. So put my single out then. And then I've just continued to try to be as consistent as possible with releasing music and content.
Amazing. And what would you say your struggles and hardships was like growing up?
My struggles and hardships. Well, I grew up with my mom. So my mom's originally from Saskatchewan. And so all my mom's side of the family's in Saskatchewan, and she came and moved to Toronto. So it's pretty much just her and I here. I do have some second cousins here, but we don't see them so often. I also grew up as a single child with a single mother, an only child with a single mother. So it was a lot of just like her and I growing up, and me learning how to be very independent and learning how to do a lot of things on my own, and kind of growing up and witnessing mental health and how it can affect people firsthand. So I think that caused me to grow up pretty quick and allowed me to mature a bit quicker. That's why a lot of people think I'm a lot older than I am. I don't know if it's because I just learned a lot when I was young, or my mom had me when she was a bit older as well. So I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of both, but yeah, I had to do a lot of things on my own, but luckily I was a very social kid, so I had a lot of friends who had big families, so I got to see what it was like to, have brothers and sisters and stuff like that, even if they weren't my own.
Smarter the wiser.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. And what were some of the limiting beliefs like when your mindset growing up?
Yeah, so I remember being a kid, I always wanted to do music. My mom and someone close to us who we called Auntie Kath always put me in musical theater, in different kind of creative dance classes when I was a kid, which I'm super grateful for, because I was never really that intelligent when it came to the academic side of things. I always excelled when it came to the creative classes and drama and woodworking and art and all these things. But my limiting beliefs for sure were, I always wanted to do music. I always wanted to do, modeling or this or that or whatever. But I never thought that it would be an option because I didn't have much money, I didn't have connections, I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't have a mentor. So I never thought that it would be possible. And I remember just growing up and, I think a lot of people, especially when they're in middle school and high school, they're trying to find their identity. They're trying to like, who am I? What am I here to do? What's my style? Like, all these things. And so through middle school and high school, I actually pretty much stopped singing and doing music fully because I didn't think that it would be an option for me growing up. I didn't think that it was something that I could pursue just based on, like I said, not having much money or experience or
Yes.
mentor or anything like that. So I'd say that was a limiting belief for sure, is just not believing in myself that I could do music and that I could push through it even if I was independent, even if I didn't have any money, and being open to collaborations and different things like that, which is really what got me through a lot of the beginning parts of my music career. And even now I collaborate with a lot of different artists, and Objects has been a great place to meet people who are also emerging in the creative scene and want to work with other creatives because photographers need a subject, and artists need photographers, so um, I do like that in the city there's a lot of people that we can all work with each other
Yeah.
because everyone needs each other for their own things, so yeah.
Take us through like the journey of uh getting over these limitations and limiting beliefs.
Yeah, honestly, I think it was just having fun. Like I got to a point where I'm like, I don't really care what anyone thinks I can
To
do. I don't
episode
care.
71, here with my all-time friend from all the way from high school. It's been a while. Welcome to my show, Sargam Nigi.
Thank you so much, Ivan. It's such a nice, beautiful, beautiful reunion, and it's just a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, amazing. So we'll just start the show then. Let the listeners know a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So, like Ivan said, we've known each other since high school. So, I'm originally from Toronto. I currently live in Australia. I work as a registered nurse. And yeah, I've been here for about 3 years now. So, I work as an
Wow,
ICU. So
wow.
I'm in, yeah, yeah, it's been a while
That's a
now.
long time. Yeah, yeah.
I'm hitting 3 years this month, and I didn't realize that at the end of the month, it's going to be a full 3 years since I moved.
Wow. So I guess long term, you're staying over there now,
I have no
or
clue.
you
I
don't know
think,
yet.
yeah, I think after COVID, I just realized that I can't really make a plan for even 5 years down the road without then having to kind of change it up a little bit. So at this point, I'm
Yeah,
open to anything. I think I still have a few more travels before I settle down, so I don't know where it'll be, but I'm liking it here. I'm loving the work here. It's a beautiful country, so happy right now.
cool, cool. Okay. So just with that, let's just dive into memory lane if you don't mind. Like,
Yes,
tell
let's do it.
us about like growing up and some of the struggles you had, if you don't mind sharing.
Yes. No, of course, I don't mind sharing. So I've actually listened to a few of your episodes, Ivan, and you've had some amazing people that have talked about a lot of resilience, and it's always an inspiration. But I must say, I don't know if I can really compare. Like, I don't think struggle is even the right word. I think, like
Everyone's
any of
story is different. There's no reason to compare. So
course, no, you're absolutely right. It's apples to oranges. I think a lot of my resilience factors come later on in my young adulthood years. Sorry, Lenny. But I think childhood wise, I had a very, very privileged and lucky childhood. Like I genuinely can't think of a specific struggle. It was a very, very nice time. I think I got a lot more of those struggles per se later on once I went into university. Being a nurse was a really hard challenge. That's probably the biggest challenge. But
so
yeah, growing
what kind of made you go into nursing? Or
so I
was that like a did you have a moment where you're saying, "Oh, I want to do this," or like was that just spontaneous?
um I can't remember if there was a specific moment. It's cliche, but I feel like as long as I've known, I knew I want to be in healthcare. I knew I wanted to
Hmm.
do something in service. Um, my best friend Jessica Jacob and I, we have this really nice chat where we check in with each other and we talk about our purpose. So we both like to live life with a lot of intention. And one of the things we discuss is how we believe that we have a purpose in life. And we feel fulfilled when we're working towards that. And so I think I realized really early on that something that makes me feel fulfilled is caring for others in any capacity, whether it's just, picking up a phone call to a friend and talking to them, or actually providing life-saving measures. So I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare, as is she now.
Yeah.
And then initially I thought I wanted to do pediatric nursing because I grew up with a cousin who I love and adore very deeply. And he is on the autism spectrum, like he's on the spectrum. So he has autism, and for him, it's not very high functioning. So I grew up with a really early exposure to that. And it was something I felt very, very passionate about, was just helping educate people on that. So I always thought I would go into pediatric nursing so I could deal with child development and enrichment. And then when I moved to Australia, just a little bit before, during COVID, I didn't really get a chance to practice as a pediatric nurse anymore because given the state of our country, we had a lot more of a geriatric population. And so most people that weren't already in critical care or geriatric care kind of had to go into that because that's what our country needed at the time, specifically Toronto.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of cases. And so after that, I kind of went into adult care for a while, moved to Australia, did my master's, and I got a really nice opportunity to work in anesthetics, which is a very unique role that I never thought I'd want to do. But it kind of just opened my eyes that there was so much more to do in my nursing career. I didn't have to just say, oh, well, I went into this.
75. Got here, my man, Alston, with me. Welcome to my show, man.
Thanks for having me, Ivan.
Most welcome. Can you let the listeners know a little bit about yourself?
Yes. What can I say? I am a singer-songwriter, also an event producer, and then also just a creative. So yeah, I just I have a creative mind, and I try my best to use that to the best abilities to help others.
Yeah, cool. So let's take a dive through memory lane. So what was childhood like for you growing up?
Yeah. Childhood was honestly I very fun, I want to say. Because I make it fun.
Yeah.
That's just who I am. I'm an optimist. My sister calls me an opportunist. Not sure if it's a bad thing or a good thing, to be honest. But it definitely had its if you outside looking in, it definitely like looked a little dark and gray. Growing up with a single mother with ADHD. Well, I have ADHD, not her. I have ADHD, ODD, and ADD.
What's ODD?
Very
What's
very
ODD?
What's ODD? Oh, I love explaining this because it's not because it definitely matches my personality. Essentially, it's opposite. I think it's oppositive defiant disorder, if I'm saying that right. Something like that.
And then you
it's
said
basically
ADD?
very defiant.
Okay.
So it's like if you say go, I say no. If you yeah, essentially. Which is like I think in a way was or is a superpower for me because I definitely challenge the norms and I always think why. Like there's always a reason like, oh, if like why do you sit? Like if, as a kid, there's nap time, right?
Yeah.
I'd be the kid to be like, no, I'm not doing nap time. Why? I'm not tired, right? And then that's where the defiant kind of nature comes in, but it can be a superpower sometimes.
And then you said ADD?
Yeah. Attention deficit disorder?
And then ADHD. Wow.
Attention hyper deficit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. The whole thing. Wow.
I know. I got all of it, and my mom had to deal with all of it.
Yeah.
As a single mother, crazy. To the point where like, there's a funny story where I got kicked out of daycare.
Oh wow.
Before preschool. I know. It was that bad.
No.
I don't know how anybody or any kid gets kicked out of daycare.
Naughty.
But I managed to put that on my resume.
Baby gets kicked out of daycare. Wow. Headline.
I know.
So what were some of the challenges growing up with a single mother?
I guess. Well, my mom was just one single mother, like just not one. Wasn't just an ordinary single mother. I don't know. She was one, but
Obviously.
she wasn't an ordinary one. It got more difficult because she works in a merge, um, and she did a lot of long hours. So I spent a lot of the time, you know, not alone because I did grow up with my sister who's 5 years older than me. But imagine missing Christmases or Thanksgivings or not being around or being late to like after practice, like just not being that ordinary kid who had the support of two people inside of
Yeah.
your partnership. So not having that support, she had to be everywhere, but also other places at the same time. I will say that my mom did a really good job at like putting me through recreation,
Yeah.
keeping me busy. I think that was part of keeping me busy was part of the
Keeping you in
ADHD or
control.
ODD. Like it was
Keeping you in control.
unnecessary thing. So I definitely got like a lot of different skills from being inside of extracurriculars. But it got challenging at points because I never could relate to the people around me.
Yeah, for sure. How was that like for you?
It can be very isolating
Yeah,
at
for sure.
times because you feel like no one kind of gets you. But then once you do bump into somebody who does get you, you kind of